See, there has been a temporary relief for wildlife. When I say temporary relief, at least in the busy cities and towns, because there are no vehicles, the pollution levels have gone down, there are hardly any people around. So animals that live in the city and towns obviously have it easy now, because there is no interference, or the negative impact of human beings have gone down, but that is temporary. What you see on social media, and I have obviously a lot of these things also get forwarded to me as well. Many of those videos are actually not post-pandemic. It is basically, some of them are even much older than before, maybe some few years old. So people, while there are some instances where animals have been found on the street, but a lot of people have just dug out some old videos, and now they're trying to join the dots and make it appear like animals have kind of taken over once people have moved away. So it's very logical and it's intuitive that if people are not around, animals will obviously be able to move much more freely. When I say animals, I'm including birds, reptiles, mammals, everything. So for instance, in Bombay, somebody like me who's been living here since my birth, I have always seen wildlife here. I rescued several snakes. I see birds in the city. We keep a proper check on how many species there are, what is the diversity, what is the species richness. So all those things we are already studying. So while the number of species over decades have gone down, but these species that we see during lockdown have always been there, but people they don't have the time to look at it. They are out in the office when birds are active, are very busy preparing for office. Right now, because everybody is confined and most of the people are raring to go out, while they are not able to go out, they are at least looking out and trying to, see what there is. And because they are gazing outside, they are noticing these things. None of the species that you have seen in the videos have kind of come out of nowhere. They have always been there. It's just that they have not been sighted because A, there is too much traffic, so they don't come out on the road where people are. And B, their ranges are far more restricted, which means if a mammal is staying near a bush, say in a small city like Bhopal or in Bombay near Sanjay Gandhi National Park, because there are fewer people, it may venture a further inside the city than it normally does. So that's all. And people a lot of time, they have their cameras on, so the videos have been taken. So I think definitely the lockdown is helping species because people are just not there. But this is an abnormal situation. It's not going to be like this once the lockdown is pulled up. So unfortunately, they don't know that the tsunami called humans is going to hit them soon. The other question that you had was increase in hunting and poaching. That is also, I think, a temporary thing. It's very unfortunate, but very difficult to curtail because, as you know, millions of people are rendered jobless right now. Many of them have had to go back from the cities to their villages. Many of those villages are very close to the forest. When young people who are working as laborers in cities go back to their village and they have nothing much to do, obviously they may even venture into the forest just for a stroll because you are just confined in a village. So mostly you are busy earning money. Now you have free time, and so a lot of this hunting is also not necessary, but it's happening because people are there. And obviously many years ago, before the Wildlife Protection Act was enacted, in India, bushmeat hunting was prevalent. So people were going into the forest and hunting. Even today, several communities that live in and around forest regularly hunt, although a lot of it is, or most of it is illegal, but it does happen at a smaller rate. Now, definitely that rate has gone up. A lot of unemployed people and young people are back. So even if there is no need for protein, and obviously bushmeat is protein, and we have seen that hunting has gone up in areas where there is no dearth of food. So it's not like people are desperate, they have nothing to eat, and therefore they are going into the jungle. while there might be some proportion of population who is suffering because of that, and they obviously will go into the forest and uh, do activities which are injurious to wildlife. But many of these hunting episodes are also from people who really have no issues in terms of food, but because they are there, they have free time and they have access to wildlife, they are doing this. So I think that is also temporary. It won't go on for more because for long, because the laws are very stringent. People don't want to be behind bars uh, uh, because of a hunting episode. So soon, when everything starts and people again start moving out back to where they were, these things will drop down. But currently, there is tremendous amount of pressure on the forest department to secure wild animals in and around forests. And we should know that India is I mean, a huge chunk, nearly 75% of all our forests are outside the protected area network, which means they are not sanctuaries or national parks or conservation reserves or community reserves. So 75% of all our forests are either reserve forests or basically territorial forests. Some of them is categorized as Jhudpi jungle. There is Forest Developmental Corporation forest also, and there is obviously huge number of human presence in those areas. The poaching incidences have gone up in these areas, which are outside protected areas. The protected areas still are quite safe because the forest department has ramped up their protection mechanism, which is their patrolling and all that has intensified because they are anticipating some problems. However, in the territorial forest, which is huge portions of India, it's very difficult to find out who is doing what because wildlife is pretty much everywhere. So it's a complete mesh of or overlap between human beings and wildlife in that area. And I'm sure there is huge amount of bushmeat hunting, especially of pigs and of deer, of things like porcupine, of smaller mammals also. And there have been instances of jaw traps being found or discovered in many of these areas, which means that people and the poachers who were going after large cats like tigers and leopards and lions may also be active because they have now got an opportunity. So yes, so this is like a double-edged thing. Cities getting calmer, wildlife is doing so. In wildlife, here the wildlife seems to be benefiting, but the pressure has actually shifted now, and the animals are being hammered in areas which are forested, far away from the city. Yeah, narrative meaning people just like stories, so people build stories, and even if there is little bit of truth in it, people start, and therefore it seems logical, so people start believing in it. But there is always, the devil is in the detail, as I say. People need to see. However, I'm happy that at least these videos are making rounds and people are exposed to the kind of wildlife that there is in and around the cities as well. So there is some amount of benefit out of it, but people have to understand that scientifically, this is not like some species have invaded. Only those species that were present there are now more visible than they were in the past. See, we must understand that India is a massive country. Our population is, well over 1.3 billion. There is huge disparity between the rich and the poor, inequity. So there is a huge gap between rich people and poor people. There are huge number of communities and people who live in abject poverty. Many of these people are highly marginalized, which means they are living deep inside the forest, away from most other facilities. So when you have a population who is vulnerable, their dependence on the forest is going to be high because they can't access what you and me can access in the city. So they're still dependent on the forest. The fact is that their population has gone up because medicine has reached the deepest part of India. The mortality rates have gone down. Life expectancy has gone up. So these populations that were very sparse are growing rapidly. So probably they are more than 4 times what they were, say, about 60, 70 years ago. So what that does is that it puts extra pressure on land, and land doesn't increase. Land over generations only decreases because the forest gets degraded, because the forest gets fragmented. The quality of forest goes down over time. Number of people goes up, and so you can understand that now the forest size is much smaller, but the people who are dependent on it has gone really exponentially high. So while we keep talking about the inefficiencies of the forest department, we must understand that it is a Herculean task where there are so many underlying issues, poverty being one. The forest department, it is not the forest department's responsibility to alleviate poverty. Their responsibility is to protect the forest and wildlife. So their job is to make sure that our natural reserves are protected, so that the water system, the river systems, because the water originates either up in the mountains, but largely, nearly 85% of all water originates or is fed by forests. So when you have such huge amount of dependence on the forest, because India cannot support such large populations of people if there is poor water supply, right? So you need these forests for the rivers to flow. So the forest department's job is to protect those forests. And we know from ecology and many years of research that has gone in, that forests alone cannot provide the kind of ecosystem services that are needed. You need wildlife as well. So forests cannot be viewed in isolation. So just because there is a plantation, which means if I want to cut a good quality forest and replace it by, say, teak, just one species of tree, that forest will not hold enough wildlife. That forest will also have a it will be much poorer in sequestering carbon. Therefore, it will have, it will impact many other processes, and also the quality of water that forest will produce will also get altered. The amount of water may also get altered, because the way the soil, the softness of the soil also depends on the microfauna, also so many different species and the different niches that species occupy. So we must understand that the forest is not just trees, but all animals, small life forms, microorganisms put together. The forest department's role is to protect that. The poverty and other issues that you have in the country are inherently because of either failure at the government level to provide more jobs, or just because of the population explosion that we have. So to put the onus onto the forest department is not right. I think they do have a role, but because they have the role to prohibit people from destroying the forest, they become the villain. So unfortunately, the villagers think that the forest department, which is a part of the government, is not allowing them to live. So there is a perception that the forest department is anti-human beings, because the forest department's role, it is forced to stop people from pilfering the forest, which means that their present need are not met because the department stops them from doing that. A department has to do that because they have to think about the future needs of the unborn generation. So there is always a tug of war between getting food to survive today, or to have the forest and therefore the river, so that my grandchildren can also live on this planet in a healthy manner. So this argument, actually, if you look at it in isolation, people can really come up with sweeping statements, which is not right. We do have to balance everything. However, now that the forest has got degraded so badly across the planet, it's not just India, but you see Amazon, you see in Australia, the fires in Africa, and wherever you go, you hear of degradation and fragmentation. In that kind of a situation, unless the department becomes more stringent, we are going to lose all the standing forests, and therefore our river systems and river basins will get irreversibly damaged, and that will cause an issue and famine and the kind of social unrest that no government can control. So what looks like a battle between poor and the forest department is actually, if it's not stalled now, and if other solutions are not found so that people can live in near the forest but not be dependent on the forest the way they are, we are going to have an issue which will be many magnitudes more severe than COVID-19. So this COVID-19, when it happened, and now we are almost 3 months into it, I find a lot of analogy in the kind of disruption that it has caused with the disruption that will happen because of forest degradation, which means climate change. So this is an acute problem which is very visible. You see people dying in 6 or 7 days. There are so many infected patients, so it hits you. But the impact that climate change is going to have, a slow, prolonged, chronic impact, is many times high in terms of magnitude than COVID-19. So COVID-19 is just a snapshot, but when climate change and the impact on the environment and the negative impact of climate change starts rolling in, the COVID-19 like situation will exist for decades on end, and that will break the back of not only the economy but life on Earth. So I think it is a good wake-up call for people to try and see similarities between what we are going through in just these 90 days, with what can happen if we don't curtail the degradation of natural resources. And so I think the question is not about forest department's inefficiency. It is the problem of the government in general. So there are so many ministries. Many of them are at loggerheads with each other. One ministry says, I want to build a dam. Other ministry says, I want to build roads. Then some other ministry says, we want to build industries. All these are being done in isolation without considering the environment impact from the time of inception. Because once that happens, then you are actually creating more problems and then asking the forest department, whose budgets have been slashed this year, by the way. So this year, the budgets to the states and also at the center have been slashed by nearly 2/3, which means by about 65%. Their budgets have gone down. So they are expected to protect the forest, the river systems, and the ecosystem with 1/3 of the existing budget, with 5 times more pressure because of unemployment. So I mean, it's just asking too much out of the forest department. It's impossible humanly for any forest guard to go and protect these forests unless the national policy safeguards the forest by having an integrated approach, a plan where conservation and economy and growth, they need to go hand in hand. It cannot be one at the expense of the other. Currently, it is growth and economy at the expense of conservation.